Right, Maureen, listen up, because today we're diving deep into MCDP-3, the Marine Corps Doctrine for Expeditionary Operations. But we're not just going to flip through the manual pages.
Yeah,
We're
nah,
going to bring it to life using this
that's right.
case study called Operation Littoral Chaos for the MCDP-3 Epilogue.
Yeah, it's a fictional scenario, this Operation Littoral Chaos, but it's designed to really make it helps you visualize the kinds of complex challenges that you as a Marine might face in future deployments, almost like a war game on paper. You're getting ready for the unpredictable realities of the littoral environment.
So what is that for our listeners?
Yeah.
You
So
know,
the littoral environment, think about it as those messy coastal regions where the land, the sea, and the air, they all kind of converge.
got it. Okay, so let's set the scene for this operation.
Okay.
It's 2017 West Africa.
All right.
And the whole region is already kind of on edge, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Overpopulation, slums, just packed with people. Widespread diseases like malaria and HIV, tribal conflicts brewing, and a growing arms trade coming out of Sudan.
Yeah. And this already volatile situation, it explodes when a really aggressive strain of malaria emerges.
Oh, wow.
This one is like super malaria. It's resistant to most medications, so they have to rely on blood transfusions. But remember, there are high HIV rates, so this just makes the crisis even worse, and the death toll, it just skyrockets. Societal order starts to completely crumble.
So we're talking serious breakdown
Oh, yeah.
of society here.
Yeah, by May 2017, estimates are saying a quarter to a 500,000 people are dead.
That's
It's a lot.
horrible.
And as if that wasn't bad enough, those long-standing tensions between the Muslim Hausa and Fulani tribes and the Christian Yorubas and Ibas, they erupt into violence in those overcrowded slums around Lagos.
And Lagos, for our listeners who may not know, Lagos is a megacity.
Oh, yeah.
One of the largest in the world with 25 million people crammed into often really rough conditions. So we're not just talking about some riots here. This is like organized fighting.
Yeah, this is full-blown
Between all these different...
warfare going on.
It's a complete breakdown of order.
And obviously the UN sees this is
Oh, yeah, it's bad.
horrible, and they call for international intervention. And this is where the Marines, you come in specifically, the 22nd Marine Expeditionary Unit, or MEU, and they're special operations capable
Yeah.
and already forward deployed.
They were ready.
They are tasked with restoring order, and they hit the ground running on June 12th.
And what's really interesting here is that the 22nd MEU, they demonstrate one of MCDP-3's core principles right off the bat, ship-to-objective maneuver.
Yeah, explain that.
So instead of, setting up a traditional beachhead, they use their MV-22 Ospreys in their amphibious vehicles to just rapidly deploy straight into the heart of the crisis-volatile suburbs of Lagos, like Ikeja and Mushin.
Yeah, so we're talking about speed and agility
Oh, it's crucial.
here because every minute counts. And they're not alone in this effort, right? The French Foreign Legion is also part of that initial response.
Right there alongside
So we're seeing already this multinational aspect.
Mm.
Absolutely.
of these kinds of operations. But even with this really fast response, things are already out of control.
Oh, yeah, because the violence, it doesn't stay contained.
It's spreading.
It's spreading like wildfire, both westward along the coast and inland.
Oh, wow.
Abidjan in the Ivory Coast, it gets swamped with refugees. The population explodes to almost 3 million people. Resources are strained to the breaking point. This is where those unique challenges of the littoral environment, they really start to show their teeth.
And this is where MCDP-3's emphasis on adaptability really comes into play, right? The Marines are facing this complex, rapidly changing situation, far different from a conventional battlefield.
Exactly. You got to be able to think on your feet. Traditional tactics, they need to be adjusted to this dynamic environment. One major challenge, malaria.
Oh, yeah, of course.
It's not just about individual Marines getting sick, it impacts their entire operational readiness.
Right.
The MCDP-3 Epilogue, it even mentions an Italian battalion. They suffered a 40% casualty rate from malaria alone.
Wow.
Think about that, nearly half of their fighting force just taken out by disease.
Yeah, that's a huge
It's a big deal.
part of their force.
And it really highlights the importance of that, sustaining the force concept that's emphasized in MCDP-3.
Which is not just about beans and bullets.
No, it's about the whole package.
It's about making sure your troops are healthy and fit to fight.
Exactly. And it's not just malaria. They're also facing crude chemical weapons. They're called Lagos smokers.
Okay, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, they release these toxic fumes. So the UN forces, they have to adapt. They got to wear protective gear, constantly reassessing their positions. It becomes clear that staying ahead of the enemy in this environment takes more than just brute force.
So faced with all of these challenges, the Marines turn to another key concept from MCDP-3 sea basing,
Yes.
I imagine this is a game changer. Can you explain what sea basing is and why it's so effective in this scenario?
Sure. Sea basing is essentially creating like a mobile and resilient headquarters and support system all at sea. So instead of relying on those vulnerable land bases, the Marines, they leverage the flexibility and the firepower of their ships. This allows them to project power ashore, conduct raids, provide support, and maneuver really quickly along the coast, all while minimizing their exposure to threats like those Lego smokers.
That makes a lot of sense, and I'm guessing those maritime prepositioning ships, the MPS,
Oh, yeah, those are key.
they play a crucial role in this sea basing concept.
Uh,
We touched on them earlier, but can you explain their significance in more detail?
Absolutely. These MPS ships, they're like floating warehouses preloaded with everything you could need: vehicles, weapons supplies, medical facilities. They provide that logistical backbone for these sustained operations in these really tough environments. And having those assets prepositioned at sea, it allows the Marines to respond rapidly and effectively, even when they're operating really far from those traditional supply lines.
This is a perfect example of that strategic foresight and planning
Hmm.
that MCDP-3 emphasizes. It's not just about reacting to crises, it's about anticipating them and having the right resources in place to respond effectively.
Yeah. You got it, the ability to project and sustain power in the littoral environment. It's a core element of MCDP-3 and sea basing, supported by maritime prepositioning that's a key enabler of that capability.
So we've seen how the Marines, guided by MCDP-3, have rapidly deployed to this chaotic region, adapted to the unique challenges of a littoral environment, and leveraged sea basing to maintain operational flexibility. But as I understand it, this is just the first act of Operation Littoral Chaos.
Yeah.
Things are about to get a whole lot more intense.
You are absolutely right. The initial response and the challenges of the littoral environment, they're just the beginning. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll see how the situation escalates, demanding even greater agility and innovative thinking from the Marines.
Stay tuned.
Stay with us. So, as the Marines and the UN forces are, trying to contain this volatile situation, things take a turn for the worse in March 2018.
You mentioned things were going to escalate, but how exactly does this already chaotic situation get even worse? What happens?
Well, a group called the National Liberian People's Front, or NLPF,
Well,
they stage a coup in Liberia. They're backed by forces from Sierra Leone. And to make matters even more complicated, they form an alliance with that PDN group we talked about earlier, the ones causing trouble in Ghana.
so essentially you have these various factions, each with their own agendas, now uniting and creating a much larger and more dangerous threat.
Exactly. And this new alliance, it really shifts the balance of power, emboldened by their success in Liberia. The NLPF and the PDN, they launch a horrifying campaign of genocide targeting Christian and animist tribes across Liberia, Ghana, and Nigeria.
Oh, wow.
We're talking atrocities that demand a decisive and overwhelming response.
And this is where the Marines, guided by MCDP-3's principles of maneuver warfare and decisive action, really step up their game, right? How does the Marine Corps respond to this escalation?
Right, the 22nd MEU, already on the ground, is redesignated as Special Purpose MEGTF Deep Strike.
Okay.
They're essentially transformed into a much heavier hitting force, reinforced with light armored reconnaissance. Battalions attack helicopters and, a significant increase in firepower.
This brings up another key MCDP-3 concept we touched on earlier, maritime prepositioning. How does this concept facilitate the rapid deployment of these reinforcements, particularly the 1st LAR Battalion coming all the way from Camp Pendleton?
That's a great question. Remember those MPS ships we talked about, those pre-positioned vessels loaded with equipment and supplies?
Yeah, the floating warehouses.
Exactly. They play a crucial role here. They allow the Marines to quickly aggregate forces from distant locations and respond to this escalating crisis with the kind of overwhelming force that MCDP-3 emphasizes.
I see.
Without maritime prepositioning, the Marines wouldn't be able to react with the speed and agility needed to effectively counter this new threat.
So it sounds like maritime prepositioning combined with the Marines' inherent expeditionary nature gives them a significant advantage in responding to these types of crises compared to other military branches.
Absolutely. That rapid deployment capability is a key differentiator for the Marine Corps, allowing them to be first on the scene and dictate the terms of engagement. It's a cornerstone of MCDP-3's concept of operational maneuver from the sea.
So the Marines have been reinforced, they're equipped for a major counteroffensive, and they're ready to take the fight to the enemy. What are the objectives of this deep strike operation?
The deep strike operation has three main objectives. First, neutralize the NLPF and dismantle their command structure. Second, put an end to the genocide and protect innocent civilians. And third, demonstrate the full potential of operational maneuver from the sea, which is a central concept in MCDP-3. They're aiming to showcase what the Marines can achieve when they combine their expeditionary capabilities with advanced technology and a relentless fighting spirit.
It sounds like they're not just trying to win a battle, but also to send a clear message about the Marine Corps' ability to project power and decisively shape events in these complex environments.
Precisely. And remember, this is all happening in the Littlers environment, which presents its own set of challenges. We're talking dense urban areas, a determined enemy fueled by the Sudanese arms trade, and operations extending deep inland far from those traditional supply lines.
Given those challenges, how do the Marines leverage technology to their advantage in this operation? You mentioned advanced technology earlier. What kinds of tools are they using?
Well, technology plays a crucial role in this operation. To minimize civilian casualties in densely populated areas, they utilize unmanned aerial vehicles or UAVs for real-time intelligence and precise targeting.
So basically drones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And rather than relying solely on brute force, they employ precision-guided munitions which allow them to hit enemy positions with surgical accuracy, again, minimizing collateral damage and adhering to those rules of engagement you're trained for.
So they're not just throwing overwhelming firepower at the problem.
Yeah.
They're using technology to act strategically and with precision, even in the midst of chaos.
Exactly. And let's not forget about those sea bases we talked about earlier. They provide continuous support throughout the operation. The Marines leverage naval long-range fires to strike enemy positions from afar, and those STOVL JSFs, which can operate from smaller ships, provide air support without needing large vulnerable air bases.
It sounds like a well-coordinated symphony of firepower and maneuver, all orchestrated from those resilient sea bases.
That's a great way to put it. It truly showcases the flexibility and adaptability of a modern sea-based force operating within MCDP-3's framework.
So tell me, how successful is this deep strike operation? Are they able to achieve those ambitious objectives we talked about?
The deep strike operation is remarkably successful, supported entirely from the sea. They maneuver an astounding 1,400 kilometers inland, achieving decisive victories against both the NLPF and the PDN. Think about that for a second. 1,400 kilometers entirely sustained from the sea. That's the true power of operational maneuver from the sea in action.
Wow, that's incredible. It really underscores the effectiveness of those core MCDP-3 concepts we've been discussing.
Right, and it demonstrates how the Marines can adapt those concepts to even the most complex and challenging situations. The operation culminates in a decisive battle outside Da Nang, Ivory Coast on April 3, 2018. The remaining NLPF forces surrender a week later, and the tide of the conflict decisively turns.
So they're really routing the enemy at this point.
Yeah, by May, both the NLPF and the PDN are effectively defeated, and major combat operations cease, the Marines having achieved their objectives, transition to peacekeeping and humanitarian aid roles, demonstrating their versatility and commitment to stabilizing the region.
So not only do they win the fight, but they also stay to help rebuild and restore order, showcasing that multifaceted approach that's so central to MCDP-3.
Exactly. They're not just warriors, they're peacekeepers, they're diplomats, they're engineers, all rolled into one. It really highlights the diverse skill set and adaptability that the Marine Corps demands of its Marines.
This entire operation, while fictional, is a powerful illustration of MCDP-3's principles in action. But as we know, the real world is full of surprises and no two conflicts are ever the same. How does this scenario prepare you, the listener, for the challenges you might face in future deployments?
Yeah.
What key takeaways should you be focusing on?
So, Marie, we've just walked through this intense scenario, Operation Littoral Chaos, and it's clear this wasn't just some action movie plot, right? This was carefully designed to make you think about MCDP-3, not just memorize it. Absolutely. Think of it like a simulator for your mind.
Okay.
We've seen how those core principles, maneuver warfare, combine armed sea basing. They're not just abstract ideas.
Right.
In Littoral Chaos, they meant the difference between containing a crisis and achieving a lasting victory.
Yeah. And it wasn't just about firepower either.
No, sir.
We saw the impact of disease, the need to protect civilians, even the psychological pressure of fighting an enemy using terror tactics.
Yeah.
MCDP-3 addresses all this, doesn't it?
It emphasizes the human element of war. Something often overlooked in traditional doctrines, Littoral Chaos, highlighted how factors like troop morale, cultural awareness, even understanding the enemy's motivations are as vital as any weapon system.
What really struck me was how adaptable the Marines had to be.
Yeah.
From ship-to-objective maneuver early on to shifting to sea basing.
Yeah.
When the land became too volatile, it was constant evolution.
That's the hallmark of a Marine force guided by MCDP-3. It acknowledges that the littoral environment is unpredictable, the enemy will adapt, the terrain will pose challenges and unforeseen events like that malaria outbreak. They will test your resilience.
So knowing all this, how should you the listener apply these lessons from Littoral Chaos to your own training and preparation?
Well, first, don't just read MCDP 3.
Right.
Internalize it.
So,
Think critically about each concept. How would you employ ship-to-objective maneuver given your unit's capabilities? What are the logistical considerations of establishing a sea base in a hostile region?
it's like those what-if scenarios we talked about earlier, but taking it to the next level,
Right?
you're not just a passive observer of Littoral Chaos. You're mentally inserting yourself into that commander's shoes.
Exactly. And second, never underestimate the importance of adaptability train for the unexpected.
Yeah.
Whether it's a new enemy tactic, an environmental challenge, or even a sudden shift in political objectives, MCDP 3 prepares you to think on your feet and adjust your approach.
Improvise, adapt, overcome, as they say, but with a solid foundation of doctrinal knowledge to guide those improvisations.
Precisely, and finally, never stop learning. Warfare is constantly evolving. Stay up to date on new technologies, study historical examples, and engage in professional discussions like this one. The more you understand the complexities of the littoral environment and the principles of MCDP3, the better prepared you'll be to face whatever challenges come your way.
So, Maureen, as you go back to your training, you're planning your own deep dives into MCDP3, remember, this Littoral Chaos wasn't just a story. It was a glimpse into the kind of multifaceted, demanding environment you may face in the future. By mastering the concepts we've discussed, you'll be ready to lead to fight and to win, upholding the highest traditions of the Marine Corps. Stay sharp.